They saw me every morning. Same gray uniform. Same crooked name badge that read Ben. Same janitor's cart squeaking its way through the glass doors before the sun even kissed the skyline. At that hour, the building felt more like a sleeping beast than a corporate headquarters. And I, at least to them, was just the man who scrubbed its belly while everyone else dreamed of promotions and IPOs. What they didn't know, what they never even bothered to consider, was that I didn't need dreams anymore. I had already built mine, brick by brick, floor by floor, until I owned the very building they strutted through like kings and queens of a castle they didn't know I ruled. Before we dive into the story, we'll love to thank you for your continued support to this channel. If you enjoy this story and stories like this, kindly subscribe and hit on the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. We will love to hear from you also. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section. We'll love to give you a shout out in our next video. Now let's begin. They mocked me with smiles. The younger interns often greeted me with sarcasm hidden under fake politeness. "Morning, Ben. You missed a spot," they'd say, pointing to a non-existent smudge just to get a laugh. I smiled, dipped my mop again, and cleaned that already spotless tile anyway. I made it a point never to react, never to flinch. If they thought I was simple, so be it. If they thought I had no ambition, they'd feel safe flaunting their ignorance in front of me. That was exactly what I wanted. People tell their secrets when they think the walls can't talk. One morning, as I cleaned outside the executive conference room, I overheard Mr. Danvers, the COO, say something to a new hire that stuck with me. "You want to succeed here? Be loud. Be visible. Make the small people invisible." He said it with a smirk as he gestured toward me. The new hire chuckled nervously, then turned away. Danvers didn't even know that the pen he dropped the day before had been used to sign a maintenance request, one addressed to my holding company's real estate division. The same pen his rent check indirectly funded. I bent down and picked up a discarded receipt from the hallway. Danvers' name was on it. A catering bill. Lavish. Wasteful. Paid for by the company. Interesting. They called me a nobody because I didn't wear a tie. But they didn't see the meetings I took after hours in my real office, across the street in the penthouse I owned. I met with legal teams, silent partners, and property developers who owed me favors. My silence was not weakness. It was preparation. I had bought the building 2 years ago through a trust. I wanted to see what kind of people filled it before making my next move. And day after day, I confirmed just how rotten the core had become. Not all of them. Some were kind. Some offered me coffee, asked if I needed help. I took mental notes of those people. Kindness leaves a louder mark than cruelty, even when spoken softly. There was one woman, Marcy from HR, who used to bring me breakfast sometimes. "They don't see you," she said once. "But I do, and you do good work." I never forgot that. She wasn't performing. She wasn't pretending. She was the type of person I would one day lift higher than she thought possible. But for now, I remained the janitor. The ghost. The one who smiled when stepped on, because I knew exactly where they'd trip later. The worst of them all was Lauren Whitman, the executive director of finance. She loved attention, feared irrelevance, and treated anyone beneath her pay grade as disposable. She once spilled an iced latte on purpose just to call me over in front of everyone. "Careful, Ben," she said with that tight smile. "You don't want to be the reason this hallway smells like failure all week." The room laughed. I laughed too. Then I cleaned it silently, even as she walked away smirking like she'd won something. But deep down, I whispered to myself, "You'll slip eventually, Lauren. And when you do, I won't need to lift a finger." I spent each day mopping, fixing minor things, keeping up the disguise. I spent each night reviewing contracts, compiling documentation, and preparing for the shift that would rock their foundation. When you own the ground they walk on, patience becomes a different kind of power. They thought I was beneath them, but I wasn't beneath them. I was underneath everything, and I was just getting started. The weeks that followed became a theater of arrogance. I kept pushing the cart, changing trash liners, and fixing the light outside the boardroom that flickered just enough to annoy them. What they didn't realize was that I was also collecting data. Surveillance footage, service invoices, payroll reports, all things my property management firm had access to. They never bothered to learn who actually owned the building they worked in. They assumed their world was made of marble and glass, unaware that I was the one who signed the vendor contracts that kept their HVAC running. And the moment they decided to turn their malice into policy, that's when I knew it was time to begin. It started with a conversation I overheard between Lauren and Danvers. She was pacing back and forth in her red heels, holding a meeting in the corridor with one of her finance lackeys. If we cut janitorial services entirely and outsource to an offshore firm, we can shave at least $80K off this quarter's expense sheet, she whispered. We just need to sell it to the board as a modernization effort. She didn't even glance at me mopping 5 feet away, as if I were a lamppost, as if I couldn't understand every word. Her assistant nodded eagerly, scribbling away. I pushed my cart to the elevator, rode it to the top floor once the building was nearly empty, and walked into the office I had built in the adjoining tower, a penthouse office disguised as a private investor suite. I opened the secured safe beneath my desk and pulled out the ownership file, flipping to the transfer clauses. Everything was in order. My lawyer had made sure of it. 2 years ago, I had purchased the building under a shell company that traced back to an asset trust in Delaware. I did it quietly, waiting for the right moment to assert ownership. That moment was finally here. I picked up the phone and dialed Ron, my property lawyer for the past 15 years. Initiate the internal acquisition notice. File it with the state registry and prepare the press release. Make sure it's bland, corporate, and utterly boring. I want them confused, not alarmed. He laughed. You're finally doing it? I smiled. Time to sweep the floor. The next day, nothing seemed out of place on the surface. But by noon, whispers started floating around. The office manager couldn't access the usual landlord contact portal. Someone from procurement mentioned the building's legal entity had changed. An email from the leasing division went out quietly to all tenants. Be advised that your property management representative will now be operating under Eastwood Holdings. All future building inquiries and operations shall be coordinated through this entity. Eastwood Holdings, my holding company. Still, no one made the connection. Not even when the Wi-Fi name changed from Madison Corp_office to Eastwood HQ overnight. Danvers came out of his office, visibly irritated the next morning. Why the hell is our janitor the only one with access to the new vendor list? He's walking around like he knows more than me. I kept sweeping. I kept smiling. Then, late that Friday, I sent out the final memo through our new office systems. Subject, building transition meeting, all department heads required. Monday 9 a.m. location. Main conference room, level 5 dress code. Formal. Presentation will be led by the new primary stakeholder. They didn't suspect anything. Maybe they thought it was just another new landlord or regional manager trying to assert dominance. They had no clue that the same man they had mocked, ignored, and stepped on was about to walk into that room with enough power to shatter their carefully curated worlds. That weekend, I returned to the building, this time without the cart. I stood in the lobby, watching the lights above shimmer across the glass walls. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel like a ghost walking among them. I felt like a storm cloud gathering quietly above a sleeping city. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even vengeful. I was simply ready. The room was already half full when I arrived that Monday morning, not in my janitor's uniform, but in a tailored charcoal gray suit with a silver tie pin. A few heads turned. At first, they didn't recognize me. I wasn't pushing a cart, and I wasn't wearing the invisible skin they had grown used to ignoring. I walked past them, briefcase in hand, straight to the front of the conference room. The name placard had been changed. Mr. Bennett, Executive Director, Eastwood Holdings. That's when the whispers started. Wait, is that Ben? No way. It is. That's the janitor. Lauren and Danvers arrived late, as usual, laughing about someone's haircut before stepping into silence. Their eyes locked onto mine. Their expressions melted from annoyance to disbelief. Danvers blinked. "What the hell is going on here?" he muttered under his breath. Lauren took a step back as I took the floor. "Good morning," I said, calm and measured, placing my briefcase on the table. "Thank you all for being here. As some of you have noticed, there's been a change in the building's ownership. Allow me to formally introduce myself. My name is Benjamin Bennett, owner and managing partner of Eastwood Holdings, the current proprietor of this entire facility." The air shifted. No one was breathing. Someone dropped a pen. One of the junior managers, who had once asked me to clean his muddy shoes, suddenly turned pale. I continued. "For the past 2 years, I've observed how this company treats people it deems beneath it. I've seen the laughter behind closed doors, the disrespect masked as policy, and the cruelty disguised as efficiency. And yes, I've mopped your floors. I've taken out your trash. I've fixed your jammed printers and scrubbed your spilled lattes. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to know exactly who I was leasing to." Lauren scoffed. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" I raised a hand, steady and calm. "Ms. Whitman, your department approved a cut to janitorial services without conducting a single interview with our staff. You proposed outsourcing to a foreign contractor without even a compliance review. And last quarter, your expense report included 4 unauthorized personal catering charges totaling over $12,000. I dropped 4 printouts on the table. As of this moment, you're relieved of your position. Security is waiting outside." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Security stepped in, and she quietly gathered her things. Danvers stood up. "You can't fire us. This is illegal. We're not your employees, we're tenants." "Actually," I said, sliding another document across the table, "this company defaulted on a performance clause in its lease contract last year, allowing me to absorb full managerial authority over floor-level operations due to breach of ethics. That clause was buried in paragraph 34, section D. You should have read it, especially when I offered the building lease renewal under Eastwood Holdings." I paused. "You signed that document yourself." The silence was deafening. One by one, they realized the truth. The man they thought was invisible had just made himself undeniable. I turned to Marcy from HR, the only one who had treated me with decency. "Marcy, effective immediately, you'll take over as Director of Ethics and Workplace Culture. You've earned more than they ever knew." Tears welled up in her eyes as she stood in disbelief. I looked around the room one last time. This isn't revenge. This is correction. For too long, we've rewarded arrogance and punished humility. That ends today. From now on, promotions won't be bought with cruelty. They'll be earned through character. As I walked out, the room remained frozen. Phones sat untouched. Laptops stayed closed. For once, everyone was paying attention. I stepped into the elevator and looked at my reflection, clean, sharp, no longer in the shadows. The doors slid shut with a soft chime. Sometimes, to truly see people for who they are, you have to let them show you who they think you are first. And once they do, you clean house. If that reveal gave you chills, imagine what's coming next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that flips the script and shakes the room. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were in Mr. Bennett's shoes? And remember, sometimes the quietest one in the room is the one who owns it.